with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Joe Biden directs HHS to enforce federal law in providing abortion care for at-risk women at every hospital receiving federal money in the country. It's just about all of them. Good move. Meanwhile, the FDA waives over-the-counter contraceptive pills. And the January 6th hearing today at 1 p.m. Eastern to focus on the right-wing shock troops. Meanwhile, Trump's White House counsel supposedly corroborates Hutchinson testimony. Turn the music down just a little bit. Bannon's contempt trial to go forward starts on Monday. Trump to testify this week in the New York AG case. Lindsey Graham told by the Georgia court he must testify to a special grand jury. Meanwhile, Trump and Biden's polling in the basements. Federal judge blocks Arizona's personhood law. National Labor Relations Board begins prosecuting Starbucks for 200 labor violations, and that's just in Western New York. As BA5 gains ground, the Biden administration considers a second booster for everybody under the age of 50. And Russia strikes kill 8 civilians overnight as it pounds eastern Ukraine. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It is Tuesday. Tuesday.
Yes.
As Emma Vigeland, who is here, says. Hello, Emma.
Hello, Sam.
Are we going? We have. There
now
you are.
we are.
Okay.
So there we
yeah,
are.
I didn't see you there.
Yes. Bradley did not want to show off my good hair day, I guess. I was just admiring
it's
it.
Matt. Matt's riding that train today.
It's Matt's fault.
Yep. Matt was a little jealous.
It's not as fun to blame Matt as it is to blame Bradley. Not as much fun.
I understand. So it is Tuesday News Day, and the big news is this move by the Biden administration, and we certainly have been critical of the Biden administration for the past couple of weeks for being very slow on the uptake, but they've obviously heard the enormous pressure that they have been getting. And it's good. We will get to that in a moment. Later this afternoon, the January 6th committee will be continuing on with its hearings. There's a primetime one planned. I don't know if it's planned for later this week or next week. We're not quite sure yet.
I think according to Politico, they rescheduled it for next week. Actually,
so
the
next
Thursday
week,
one.
And so we will see what that one brings. But they sat down last week, and there has been some indications that the former White House counsel to Donald Trump corroborated everything that Hutchinson, who was the essentially right-hand person to Mark Meadows, the chief of staff. Nasty girl, crazy. Corroborated everything she said. And so they're starting to sort of like, I don't know, this is the chapter in the book where some of the through lines, like for the first like 5 chapters, you're like, wait, what? Who's this dude? Why am I following this? And this is the chapter where it starts to feel like we're getting into where all of a sudden they all show up at the crossroads, or
It's like Magnolia.
yeah. So or Magnolia. I mean, it's a broader literary and film.
No, it's like
technique.
this one.
It's like
Okay.
the Bob's Burgers movie.
It's like, yeah, exactly. Like you're like, hey, wait a second, what does a sinkhole have to do with? Okay. Well, I don't want to get into that. I mean, the idea that you'd have a sinkhole and you wouldn't have the health inspector show up is just absurd. It's just bizarre.
I heard that they wrote the health inspector out, though, because the actor who plays him is such a pain to work with.
Well, no, the health inspector was in the movie. I'm just saying that
right.
from a plot standpoint, the idea that you would have a sinkhole in front of a restaurant and you wouldn't have the health inspector show up just seems to me to be
Failure in realism.
It's both sort of like a disgusting message. It
Yeah.
really ruined the message of the film. And also just from a dramatic standpoint was just absurd. Like, why wouldn't you want that clock ticking? I don't want to get into it. Like, but a sinkhole in front of the restaurant and the landlord going to prison is somehow going to make it harder for you to pay your rent? No, it's going to make it easier. What you need is some third character to come in and create some type of pressure. Like, you can't operate your restaurant, or something like that. I don't know.
But you don't want to get into it.
No, I don't. All right, so the January 6th committee hearings today, 1 p.m., are going to be covering the shock troop side of things. And I think what is going to be clear is that both Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys anticipated things happening. And both anticipated that there would be a new era after January 6th. And the Oath Keepers were sort of like had sort of rapid response troops on the perimeter of the city. I mean, it is hard to imagine that they just sort of came up with this on their own. And both groups just sort of like had this weird idea of like, well, maybe something will happen someday and there'll be some type of protest and there'll be a storming of the Capitol.
Yeah, and they also did recon. Like they were planning. Plus, it's all those guys love to cosplay like there's some sort of troop. They're doing like troop movement and intel and like what is this FBI?
Well, I think
I can't think of the word, but anyway,
reconnaissance.
Reconnaissance.
But I think,
yeah.
but I think in this instance, they may love to cosplay, but I think like they thought they were doing the real thing, and I think we're going to hear from about that side of things, and then I think probably next week in the prime time is my guess. This is just my guess, and it's completely uninformed speculation, or I should say, I don't have any inside information. I don't know what is going on with that. My camera just went berserk. I think what we're going to hear next Thursday is they're going to put together what was happening with the outside groups and what was coming from the administration. I have a feeling that's why they want to do prime time. When that connection happens, then it's off to the races. Here is Jamie Raskin, who is going to be, I think, chairing this version of the committee today. I don't know what's scheduled for the prime time one, but let's hear from Raskin.
White House counsel Pat Cipollone has corroborated almost everything that we had learned from the prior hearings. And he had clearly tried to talk President Trump down from his efforts to override the election. I mean, he had been apparently accepting and supportive of the lawsuits. There were 8 hours of it. I was there for most of it, and I didn't hear him contradict any other witness. Well, I certainly didn't hear him contradict Cassidy Hutchinson, and I think he had the opportunity to say whatever he wanted to say. So I didn't see any contradiction there.
Sit down.
So there it is. I mean, and Hutchinson's testimony, of course, was challenged by some of the Secret Service people, at least anonymously.
They did not go and testify and say as such, as far as we know.
They said they're open to it.
We will testify, but that's a little bit different than actually testifying.
Yes.
And we can't forget about the fact that Donald Trump was discrediting her at a rally, basically just saying she was bad at her job. I won't give any specifics, but she was really bad. Like,
yes,
total wacko.
Total wacko.
Which is why she was in every meeting.
He does that with
Mark.
every. You know what's interesting about Trump in terms of like his nicknames? It is always, the women are always crazy. Yes.
Yeah.
You notice how it was crazy Nancy Pelosi, it's crazy Lynn Cheney,
Crazy Rosie O'Donnell.
Waters, yeah.
crazy and wacko Hutchinson. I mean, they're
He only
always,
deviated with Crooked Hillary, but she
That's
was
true.
also crazy.
That's true. He did have crooked Hillary, but it's always crazy.
Yeah.
And
And
the
then
thing
with
is, like-
men, it's like insulting their physical appearance. Little Marco.
Well, little Marco, but there was also like
Or
Lion
Lion
Ted.
But he insulted his wife's physical appearance.
Yes. But it's just interesting.
More
that
about their
it's
weakness.
always crazy
Yeah.
for the women.
Interesting.
Folks, just a reminder: this program is like 98% supported by its members. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. And when you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, you also get the fun half. We have no ads today, but I did get an email, and I'm going to give them a freebie. I don't care, because I get this email, and I thought it was pretty funny. Hello, Sam. Hello, Emma. Well, I guess I didn't get it. It's for both of us. I listen to, watch your podcast nearly daily. I normally ignore the advertisements on all shows I enjoy. However, I have purchased products from Sunset Lake .com, mostly Doggy Sabbath. They are effing awesome. I really appreciate this guy, actually. I don't know if it was a guy or a woman. This person putting F **ing. They didn't even write it out to me, so I didn't have to see it. On car rides, she usually shakes the whole time due to excitement/anxiety. During our 4th of July or New Year's celebrations, she freaks the F out. Why does he write? Why is this person? They are effing awesome, and then they write she freaks the fuck out. I don't get it. All right. Anyways, Sunset Lake dog treats have been very valuable. As long as I give her the treats before the excitement, she does pretty well. Love you. Bye-bye. Well, there you go. And right now, Sunset Lake does not have a sale on the doggy treats, but they do have 35% off their tinctures with the coupon code TINCTURE.
Whoa.
So check that out. Get the 6,000 milligram one or the 3,000 milligram. I like the natural flavor. Some people like the citrus, and the mint is actually pretty good too.
I've been using that one.
The mint is good too, because if you brush your teeth before or after, it doesn't clash. Yep.
Good tip.
Yeah, little user tip. All right. So let's get into this. This is we have been pretty unsparing in our critique of the Biden administration's response to this ruling by the Supreme Court. And, and I don't think the bar that we had set was particularly high. It was, you had 6 weeks at least to prepare for something, at least perform like even do something performative, but certainly do stuff to heighten the contradiction between the two parties. Now, there is a plan in the House to vote on a series of abortion-related rules. I don't know what is going on with this. And to vote on a series of abortion-related rules or laws in the House just to get Republicans to vote against them. I would like to see some type of resolution that the Senate or the House will not pass a ban, but of course it's Joe Manchin is staying in front of that stuff, or I should say, is an obstacle to it. But the White House finally came out with something that I think has both the optics of they're doing as much as they can, or they're doing something, I should say, and real legitimate material benefits. We have said many times on this program that the exemption for if a woman's life is in danger was more or less useless.
Yeah.
Because you're forcing hospitals and doctors to make an assessment as to where that state of being, that a woman's life is in jeopardy, starts. Like, does it start where there's a 10% chance, a 5% chance, a 30, a 40, a 50% chance? You could be weeks off from a problem. You could be months off from a problem. I mean, very hard to make that assessment.
And in making that assessment, you're also giving up valuable time that could, be you're wrangling with your lawyers. That's really why it's impossible to actually, create that exception.
And it's going to cause a lot of doctors to just tell women to go somewhere else because they don't want to get arrested. They don't want to serve jail time. They don't want to lose their license. They don't want to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. This is the same with hospitals. And then, of course, you also have states where there is no exception for the life of a woman. My understanding is that in both those instances, a woman can go to a hospital that receives, that provides Medicare or Medicaid services, which is virtually every hospital in the country, not every, but almost every, gets federal dollars. And if so, they are subject to the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, EMTALA, which requires that all patients receive an appropriate medical screening, examination, stabilizing treatment, and transfer if necessary, irrespective of any state laws or mandates that apply to specific procedures. If an emergency medical condition is found to exist, the hospital must provide available stabilizing treatment or appropriate transfer, like I say, to another hospital that has capabilities to provide this. If a physician believes that a pregnant patient, and this is a memorandum summary that Becerra sent, if a physician believes that a pregnant patient presenting at an emergency department is experiencing an emergency medical condition as defined by EMTALA, and that abortion is the stabilizing treatment necessary to resolve that condition. Again, like, you don't have to, like, it's just an emergency medical condition. That physician must provide that treatment. Must. When a state law prohibits abortion and does not include an exception for the life of the pregnant person, or draws the exception more narrowly than EMTLA's emergency medical condition definition, that state law is preempted. Okay, so who determines whether there is an emergency medical condition within the meaning of the EMTLA? Is it a state judge? Is it a state prosecutor or a county prosecutor or a city prosecutor? No, it would be the responsibility, this is a quote, the responsibility of the examining physician or other qualified medical personnel. So in other words, a doctor's or a nurse's determination that a patient is in an emergency medical condition is the final word and arbiter of this. Emergency medical conditions involving pregnant patients may include, but are not limited to, ectopic pregnancy, complication of pregnancy loss, or emergent hypertensive disorders such as preeclampsia with severe features. I don't know what that is, but again, at least the last one. But I reiterate, they're not limited to that, and these determinations are made by doctors. All right, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to see if we can fix my camera, and we'll be right back after this. We're back, folks. Apologies for that. We will cut out that piece, at least in the audio podcast. For those of you watching on video,
absolutely.
What are you going to do, man? All right. So to reiterate, and we've gotten some IMs basically saying that it's going to be risk-averse lawyers who are probably going to be engaging in that. There is also an EMTALA whistleblower act, and so there is a lot of force brought to bear on these hospitals, and there is going to be the effectiveness of this order is going to be a function of the Whistleblower Act that is embedded in there.
In what way?
Well, in the sense that if a patient comes in with, let's just say, an ectopic pregnancy, and it's in a state where there is no exception for the life of a mother, just to make this an extreme hypothetical, and the doctor is interested in providing care, or the doctor has been instructed by lawyers at the hospital, we do not do this because we don't want to be embroiled in a state case.
Yeah.
We don't want to be doing that. there's a whistleblower provision within the EMTLA that someone can go and then report on it, and it's really just a question of just how vigorously HHS will fine hospitals found to be in violation.
But the Whistleblower Act could also maybe it could be the reverse, right? In order to maybe go after a doctor, shed light on a doctor who had performed one of these procedures,
No.
and then the state could take action. But I mean,
No. This is a Whistleblower Act within the EMTLA. This is on a federal level. There is no, I mean, a whistleblower going and reporting a doctor on a state level, it doesn't matter because federal law, trumps.
I mean, agreed. But as a vehicle to eventually maybe chipping away at this exception that the Biden administration is carving out, doesn't mean that, again, this is the case that Biden's making for not doing other pro-abortion executive orders and actions. So I'm not making that case. I just, in theory, really, maybe the whistleblower clause could allow for.
It's a federal statute,
Yeah,
so it's not going to operate on a state level.
Okay.
But my understanding is that it's up to almost $120,000 per violation of the EMTALA.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And exclusion, I would imagine, either from the hospital or the doctor from Medicaid and Medicare. I mean, so there are major consequences to not following this law, and it really is a question of, and I think early and quick, HHS has to make an example if they come across any one of these cases. But they are putting the memo out there, which sets the predicate. You are now on notice that we are going to start to enforce this. And so,
good way to counteract the bounty system from a lot of these bills in this state law too, right? You got fines on our side now.
Yes, and I think that's the idea. So this is a good first step, and I think there are other things that the Biden administration can do. You mentioned earlier the idea of using federal buildings as, perhaps a place for abortion providers to work out of. But this is very straightforward and does not have any of the sort of like legal complications that may come with the other move that people are hoping for. We should also say the LA Times has a story about autoimmune patients losing access to what is considered the gold standard drug for some of those ailments like lupus. This story about a patient, Becky Schwartz, got a message from her rheumatologist. This is a notice to let you know that we're pausing all prescriptions and subsequent refills of methotrexate. The decision is made in response to the reversal of Roe v. Wade. Methotrexate is a cheap, common drug prescribed to millions of Americans who have rheumatic illnesses. Others take it to treat inflammatory bowel disease, psoriasis, or cancer. And the bottom line is it's used for those things as an off-label to end ectopic pregnancies.
Yeah.
And so this could be restricted in those, by those doctors.
And my understanding, too, is that this patient that was profiled by the LA Times lives in Virginia. So, like, that's not even a state that has gone down the road that these other red states have, even though they now do have a Republican governor. But that could be coming down the pike, but also just the chilling effect that this has from on a national level for half the states in this country to have abortion be illegal. It's not just going to be confined to the borders of those states.
Yep, that's absolutely right.
And
and particularly, I wonder. I mean, I imagine right now there are lawyers saying, like, we're part of this hospital group. So if we do this in Virginia, for instance, and we have hospitals in Texas, like what's our liability? So
Right.
there's a lot of people trying to figure this out. Meanwhile, the FDA is now weighing, making an having some contraceptive pills sold over the counter. Supposedly, this application was in effect anyways. I mean, or I should say, was submitted. It was submitted prior to the Roe v. Wade ruling.
Coincidental timing.
Yeah, I wonder.
Right.
But it is, according to the Frederic Wellgren, the HRA Pharma's chief strategic and innovations officer, their application is really a sad coincidence. Birth control is not a solution for abortion access. I wonder if there is, like, you're going to see that people try and use that if it gets over the counter as a sort of a morning after type of situation.
Well, right, I know, but that is risky. I don't really know. It depends on the birth control.
Right. But we're not clear what the FDA is going to do. But one hopes that they do okay it and get it out there. Apparently in Europe, that's the case as well. Like I mentioned earlier, Democrats are scheduling votes on abortion access in the House, not so much in the Senate, because Joe Manchin is basically makes everything DOA. And apparently Schumer wants to make sure that they get circuit judges. They're trying to push through as many judges as possible, which frankly, I think makes probably the most amount of sense that they can if they know they can't get anywhere, and even to bring any bills to the floor, use this time to get as many judges as possible, because could lose the Senate come fall. However, I would like to see the Democrats, even if they could get Manchin to sign on to like a non-binding resolution about not banning abortion federally. Certainly do this in the House so that this is something that people can run on in the fall.
Did you say judge? Did you say judges? Because I just wanted to point this out, that HuffPost is reporting, they have a source inside the White House, or a source that was briefed on the White House's plans. We mentioned this last week or whenever this news broke, that the Biden administration was going to nominate Chad Meredith, a Federalist Society anti-abortion judge in Kentucky, to a federal lifetime appointment. And they had planned to announce that pick on the day that Roe v. Wade was overturned, just coincidentally. And then they were like, oh, well, our press release is going to get messed up, so let's just sit on it. And a lot of people like myself, were speculating maybe the blowback from this is going to cause them to retreat, which would be the bare minimum that they could do, because they were planning on nominating this anti-abortion activist in exchange for peanuts from Mitch McConnell when the leaked opinion had already come out.
Yeah.
And now HuffPost is reporting that, nope, it doesn't matter that Roe v. Wade was actually officially overturned, so they have no excuses anymore. Biden is still moving forward with plans to nominate Chad Meredith to a lifetime federal appointment. A lifetime federal appointment! And you wonder why people are feeling discouraged by the Democratic Party right now.
It's unclear to me what the deal is.
I'm looking at a right-wing strategist, Liam Donovan. He says, if it saves time and grief and allows you to push through more noms to the bench while you have the chances, it's probably a good trade, even if it makes the groups mad and creates a messaging headache. Beyond the face value, WTF, most people pushing back based in, again, this is a conservative, in initial reporting that the trade would be good for U.S. attorneys, USA's U.S. attorneys. This posits a broader judicial package. Former makes sense for McConnell, latter makes sense for Dems. Question is whether the incentives line up.
Well, that's the thing. That's really the question. I accept the premise that there could be a deal that makes it worthwhile. One anti-abortion judge in Kentucky, or one more anti-abortion judge, we should say, probably in Kentucky, may not have the material implications if you are actually getting something from McConnell that makes things easier in terms of passing other judges through. I mean, the value for McConnell, of course, is not just because whatever personal affinity he has for this judge, but also there's political value in it, right? Because it's going to hurt Democrats. It's going to demoralize them.
We have a Democratic Senate. We do not need to be cutting deals with McConnell on nominating judges.
Well,
as a part of a package,
it depends on what it is. If it's Dick Durbin, not paying attention to blue slips, he could do that. Unilaterally. If it's Mitch McConnell agreeing to not invoke the whatever it is, the limited amount of debate time for each judge. Look, you have a limit, and I don't know what the terms of the deal are.
Well, the fact that there are terms are not being said to the press indicates it's nothing.
Well,
it's nothing.
No,
it's procedural garbage. Yes.
Well, but procedural garbage. If you have 50 working days on the Senate calendar, and McConnell has the ability, just like the Democrats did, to chew up 10 of those days, it may, and you know that you can get 3 judges in per day. It may be worth getting 30 judges to give up this one. I mean, now,
the fact that
I'm speaking hypothetically, because we don't know what the points of the deal are, but it is possible that there are deals that would work. I don't know what the deal is, but I just think we need to be clear about that, because they do have the ability, an unstoppable ability, to slow up the gears. And the Democrats did this as well.
Like the fact that they have to make this deal is indictment of their previous urgency. And we shouldn't be in this position where we have to deal with McConnell.
Well, the Obama administration, actually, I mean, goes back to the early days of the Obama administration, where they left a lot of judges vacancies.
I think you're optimistic about the terms of that deal. I mean, you're saying it's possible.
No. I'm not making an assessment of what the terms of the deal are, but I do know that there are certainly things that can be done in the context of the Senate that could mean an extra 20 or 30 judges get placed on the bench. And if it's that case, I would do that.
No, I mean, look, if that is the case, I understand the deal that's being cut. I just I don't have optimism that is the case, given the fact that we've had this story out there for 2 weeks. And if the Biden administration really wanted to take heat off of itself, which it's rightly getting heat for, they would have said, okay, we're going to trade this off, and then we're going to have 30 judges that are going to be put forward through with McConnell in this package deal. It's probably somewhere closer to like 10, and the Schumer route of just focusing the rest of the Senate calendar on putting forward those judges is a way better option, because just from a messaging perspective, the Biden administration can afford to do this. I really don't care what the deal is, even if it is what you say. I guess I do, but if it's as charitable as you say, but I don't think it is.
I think we're going to find out after this judge gets nominated. Somebody, I mean, I agree with you. If it is a good deal, we'll hear about it without a doubt.
And the fact that we haven't heard means I don't think it is. And I do think that the Biden administration is playing with fire. I know that Charles Booker is likely not going to win in Kentucky, but you're screwing over a lot of candidates, not just in Kentucky, down ballot on the Democratic ticket with such a muddied message about abortion like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think time will tell in terms of the number of judges. But what is the number? Let's put it this way: what is the number of judges that you think it's worth it?
It depends.
Lifetime appointments.
It depends on the calculation of what's left on the Senate calendar.
No, I'm asking you, if there was a way to quantify it, what number of judges? 10, 20, 30?
How many could be fit into the rest of the Senate calendar with the time that we have, if McConnell was holding every one of them up? More than that.
Well, no. I'm saying what number of judges, extra judges, would it be worth it for this deal to go through?
No, I know what the question is. I'm just trying to say.
But like, what if there was only time for like 3 more judges? That wouldn't be enough, right?
If there were only time?
I don't know how
no,
much time.
No.
I think the question is like, there's going to be extra judges that are going to be available to be confirmed because of this. Now, again, well, that's the point. I mean, I think undoubtedly, but the question is how many, and if it's Dick Durbin with blue slips, that's ridiculous because he could do that unilaterally. And I've read somewhere that maybe that was part of it or maybe not. So, you know, I'm just hypothetically speaking, if this meant 10 more judges vacancies filled, because there's a lot of vacancies still. If it was 10 more filled, would that be sufficient? If it was 20 more, would that be sufficient?
Sure, yes. But I
They
mean,
better be consistent pro-abortion, though.
Oh, yeah. Presuming that there's no more anti-abortion judges and these are good picks. I mean, there's a lot of things contingent. This is a hypothetical. I'm just asking.
I'm saying it is whatever is a significant, 10 more than could be done in the time allotted with McConnell still obstructing. Does that answer your question?
Well, this deal is to get him to obstruct less.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, presumably. I mean,
if it fails
it's
that,
possible
then it's a bad deal.
If McConnell stabs them in the back with it, yes, it's
We
a bad
have a
deal.
ton- but
if
we
the
have
deal
a-
does not allow them to get any more judges, then it's absurd.
We have a ton of evidence to suggest that McConnell is not a trustworthy person to be negotiating with. I think you have on principle you don't do this kind of stuff.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I'm not. I don't have the details of the deal to know. And
yeah, I mean, I think you could think of 50 pro-abortion judges. That's a good deal, but I don't think the Democrats deserve the benefit of the doubt on that stuff.
Right. I mean, broadly speaking, it certainly looks bad for the Democrats, no doubt. And we definitely know what the downside of this is that it muddies the message, without a doubt. We don't know what the supposed upside is. We don't know why they're doing it. It's not impossible to imagine the Democrats coming out and just shooting themselves in the foot for this because they really like the look of blood coming out of their toes. But
pretty color.
But I think we just got to be aware of that potential dynamic. And for me personally, at the end of the day, I would take 10 judges, progressive judges, for that one coming out of Kentucky, frankly. Just because 10 judges is better than one. I want to fill all those vacancies. And if that's what it takes, I would do it. Anything less, or if it was something that could have been done unilaterally by the Senate, then I would say no. But that's for me, that's what I would do.
Yeah, the Durbin pig slip thing is something that just needs to be dealt
slip,
with.
I think.
Blue slip.
Right.
If it's a blue slip thing by Durbin, I will honestly crap my pants. I'll be
I'm like, I don't know. I think that's more likely than you might think, just because of how we don't have the terms, and it's been 2 weeks. If they wanted to take heat off themselves, they would tell us.
I am not even addressing that. Like the idea that I'm just saying that the potential for a good deal exists. Do I have faith in this administration for pursuing it? Not really. But I'm just raising that point. If it was 10 judges, and
I
again,
get it.
I would take it. But I would not be shocked to find out that it was, whatever, the blue slips, or just that it was something much smaller. I don't know.
All right. Sam doesn't know. Deal.
We will find out.
We've struck a deal.
We'll revisit this in 3 weeks.
Exactly. And I think we will hear about it at one point from somebody. Getting back to the hearings for a moment, new polling out today from Morning Consult. 66% of voters say Trump attempted to overturn the 2020 election. 66% say he claimed the election was fraudulent without evidence. 59% say he misled the public on the outcome of the election. 44% of Republicans say Trump lied about the election results. That's up 7 points since the end of June.
Yeah, that's good.
I think this is actually great.
Does it matter if he runs again in 2024? I think they'll probably forgive a lot. Republican voters.
Oh, no. This is, without a doubt. That's the thing, is that I think that, really, I'm not terribly interested in the what happens with the Republicans because, like I said at the top of the show, did I say this at the top of the show?
We said it off air.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was trying to.
Yeah, I went back and I looked at the polling from 2016. And here, Matt, you can pop this up on the screen. Let me send this to you. And Donald Trump was at no higher than 35% until March 20th of 2016, when there was only two more, and there should be a scroll down. You can see that graph. Okay. Oh. That purple line and that black line represent John Kasich and Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, one of the most hated people who are in our government, I think.
Yeah.
And John Kasich, the other most hated person in the Republican Party. And it wasn't until then that Trump hits, keep going forward until you get to that thing shoots up. Yeah, right there. That's what?
March 21st.
Yeah, and that's the only time he's above 40%. Here's the thing with Trump is that, that 35% of the Republican Party.
It's the best 35.
That supports him. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And there's no one else who can claim to have that strong of support in the Republican Party. What I like about these numbers that are coming out of the Jan 6 thing is that these are numbers that are going to have implications in the general election.
Yes.
And so,
it means that the Jan 6 hearings are effective, in my opinion. I mean,
I agree. I mean, it's hard to imagine what else they were attempting to do. It'll be interesting to see if they can start to tie it to other members of Congress and implicate the Republican Party, or if they have any interest in doing so, which at this point, it looks like they don't, just based upon the whole MAGA, Uber MAGA Ultra,
MAGA
strategy.
Ultron.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure if Republicans want to admit this in terms of the committee that they, Tim Scott was saying it. Somebody, I think McCarthy was saying it, oh, there's no chance for cross-examination. Yeah, not anymore. You guys decided to not do it. You could have brought witnesses. You could have participated and said, oh, this didn't happen. But you made the choice to disallow cross-examination.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I think they are happy. I think largely the Republican Party is happy with these numbers. I think they're probably more happy than they should be. But it is no coincidence that you're seeing all these moves by DeSantis right now.
Yeah.
Right? You have we've had a 1 month period of time where these hearings have happened, maybe even less. And this is the time that DeSantis is making his move. This is the time you're starting to hear Republicans leak these stories about Trump is in trouble. They waited for the Hutchinson testimony, but you sort of knew that they were going to try and do this. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if there were 4chan posters right now, or people, posting on Twitter with hashtag, Trump, or going into, truth, whatever the social media, Truth Social, or whatever it is, or doing Rumble videos, claiming that DeSantis is behind a lot of what we're seeing with these Jan 6
They might be
hearings.
onto something too. I don't know.
I would imagine that would create a lot of discord. And not the good kind like we have at majoritydiscord.com. I'm saying
Majority Discord.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm saying it would cause, that would be like an Operation Chaos type of thing.
Yeah.
That if someone wanted to do that. So you never know. People are funny that way.
The Republicans that's why they keep propping up DeSantis. I keep saying it. They want Trump without the January 6th baggage, which is why keep it up with the January 6th stuff. I want Democrats to be doing substantive things for people as much as anybody, 100%. And I wish they did, and I wish they were able to deliver and had those feathers in their cap going into the midterms, but they don't. So keep up with the January 6th negative partisanship, because that's useful in and of itself. And when you see how CNN, I mean, I see the CNN and MSNBC on at the gym, right? They're always talking about Jan 6, Jan 6, Jan 6, Jan 6. This is like a taste of what Fox News has been doing to the Democratic Party for 20 years, which is like coordinated media attacks and hammering home a certain message until it gets into the public consciousness. And now look at the poll numbers that are indicating it's made a huge difference. Fox has been doing this for like, I mean, they try with Dr. Seuss, but they were doing it for decades with Benghazi, with the Hillary server, whatever it needs to be. They've been successful. And this is a taste of what could have been if the Democrats were better at weaponizing the media and negative partisan.
Right. And it's not, I mean, it's not just like, it's not that hard to weaponize the media. You have to do these things over and over again. They had they had 55 votes to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. They had 6 different hearings. Was it on Benghazi or 5? I mean, major hearings. And the media follows what the parties do. So,
yeah, and like, I mean, I would agree with Emma about I'd prefer they do Medicare for all and loan forgiveness and stuff like that. But this is actually like signing up for the integrity of elections is actually material.
This is pretty material stuff. I mean, it is. We do need that. One final IM, and then we'll go into the fun F. Can you explain why there are always many dozens of federal judgeships that can constantly be filled at any time? Are the Dems and Republicans always just court packing, or is that a branch of government perpetually short-staffed? Is there a theoretical point where these seats could be filled and they couldn't anymore? Please explain. The Obama administration was very, very slow to do judges. They were dealing with the Affordable Care Act. Look, you have a limited amount of resources in the White House, right? If the chief of staff is running everything, there's only so many hours in a day. And they also want control over these things. They're not going to just, completely farm it out to somebody. Or at least they didn't at that time. And they had the financial crisis. They had the ACA, and they simply did not prioritize judges. It was a huge mistake, but that's what they did. And so it created a lot of vacancies because people retire. And so there was a lot of vacancies for Donald Trump to fill when he came in. During the Biden administration, they have moved faster on lifetime appointments in the federal judgeship than any administration in the past. However, there's a lot of judges out there who are going, I'm 70, I'm 68, I'm 72. Now's the time for me to retire so that Biden can fill my seat with a good judge. Because I don't want to retire if Trump comes back in 2 years. So they all retired. And so there's again, a lot of vacancies. So, you're never going to come in and fill every single vacancy. It's just not going to happen. But if you've got 50 or 60 vacancies, if you've got a big number of vacancies, you want to fill those. You want to fill them because they are lifetime appointments. And you are creating a bench for a Supreme Court, and you're inhibiting the ability of Republicans to fill those positions. That's it. I don't know off the top of my head, but I just saw that number, and it had gone up from where it was when Biden was in there, despite the fact that he's been filling these seats faster than any other administration. So,
there's
all right.
I went to a website. There is a judicial vacancies aggregate on uscourts.gov.
And these are
for district courts, 66 vacancies, Court of Appeals, 8. There's total 78 vacancies and 21 pending nominees.
And how many have we filled already, I think, during this administration? I don't think it's...
that does not
we
come
can find
up
that.
here.
But you want to get those district court judges first, and then you want to get you want to get the circuit court judges first, and then you want to get the district court judges. All right, we're going to take a quick break and head into the fun half of the program. This Matthew from Philadelphia said, regarding the Citizens United debate, Destiny went off yesterday. about you not knowing the terms of several marriage contracts between the House of Stark and House Frey, struck by King in the North, Robb Stark. So there you go. All right, we're going to take a quick break and head into the fun half. Remember, you can be a part of this program by IMing at via the app at majorityapp.com. You can call the program. 646-257-3920 is the number. Don't forget, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckie and Media universe?
Yeah, patreon.com/Left Reckoning to get our Sunday show with Milton Alamati on the New York Times and other media's role in apartheid and colonization in Africa. And for this Wednesday, Marcus the Left Flank Vets going to be joining David and I talk about being a vet in the military and also in media.
Oh, and maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. All right, we'll see you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second. Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone? Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports.
We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Who libertarians?
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge met.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35 501 1 half 3 8s
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
5 4 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes to satire.
On top of it all,
Yeah.
my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like
Yeah.
everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. Hello. We are back. It is the Majority Report, ladies and gentlemen.
Have you addressed the elephant in the room? You're wearing a new shirt today.
Oh, yeah. I am. Wow. That is true.
Brand new?
Spend a lot of time together.
The shirt is new for me, but actually, to be honest with you, like, I have trouble buying clothes. I'm not good at it. And I had this one shirt like that was like this that was blue, and I like it. And I'm like, I want another one of those. And so
The
I
Matt Leck
Googled it,
method.
and it turned out it turned out that I had got it from Stitch Fix, but they don't have it anymore. And so I Googled it, and it came up on Poshmark. So it's actually, it is
secondhand.
It is, well, it is secondhand, but I was assured in the ad for Poshmark that it was washed but never worn.
Ah.
Yeah. So, not that
Well-
I have any problem wearing. Like I bought secondhand clothes all the time.
Yeah.
But
it's a good thing to do for the environment.
yeah, and so, but what do you think? I mean,
I like it. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
All
There
right.
you go, folks. We'll open up the phone so that people can comment on my shirt.
But only that.
But only on the shirt. We're only going to be taking sartorial calls today. Let's get to this.
I just want a reminder that like we have that clip not in sound of our friend of the show sparring with Josh Hawley.
Oh yeah, let's do this. All right, right now there is a hearing. What hearing is this? All right, let's get more information on this.
It's the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing about abortion access in the law.
Okay, and a former guest of ours, Kiara. What's Kiara's?
Bridges.
Kiara Bridges. She's
Kiara Bridges. She was a professor from Stanford, or is it
UC Berkeley.
UC Berkeley.
Again, this is happening right now. So.
And this is happening right now. And she apparently sparred with Josh Hawley, one of the Jan 6 insurrectionists from the inside, over the question of abortion. Remember, he is really trying to solidify the fundamentalist base of the Republican Party, which is also what all the other Republicans are doing, because that's who
Yeah.
is
So
the
he's trying to one up others and his transphobia here. That's how he weaves that into the abortion debate.
Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue. It's a.
We can
it's a
recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
Because of
for
my
us-
line of questioning? So
Because-
we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist
I'm
is
denying that trans
dangerous.
people exist by asking
Are you?
if you're
Are
talking
you?
about women
Are you?
having pregnancies.
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can
So
get
you are
pregnant.
denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you? Or are they
Absolutely.
also treated like this, where
No,
they're
they're
told
allowed
that
to
they're
question.
opening up people to
Oh,
violence?
we have a good
by
time in my
questioning?
class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot
I
just in this
know,
exchange.
absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
Ms. Matsky,
Wow. He just got spanked all over there. Now, to be clear, I mean, what she did was incredibly brave, because I will guarantee you that clip will be on Tucker Carlson tonight, and Tucker Carlson will make her pay for that. That is what his job is. His job is to make sure that she is scared shitless of ever doing that again. And so folks should
get her back.
Get on Twitter, get her back, because I guarantee you they are going to demonize the shit out of her.
Yep.
And just
A black woman talking about trans rights is
daring to talk back to Josh Hawley.
Exactly.
And not just take that line of questioning, right? I mean, she reframed it in such an amazing, perfect way. First of all, I don't know. It takes a lot of bravery, as you say, because of what she's going to face as a black woman and in this public forum. But just the fact that she also said not all women can get pregnant too. When you expand the understanding of healthcare to include trans people and talk about how and sometimes, I'll fall into it, say women as a shorthand in terms of who will get protected by abortion. But, I'm trying to get more in the habit of it as well, to say people who can get pregnant. You are being inclusive about women who don't have the capacity to get pregnant, yes, or cis women. And two, trans men as well, non-binary people. And the fact that she's being aggressive and not hiding from that messaging really, really does wonders. And it's important.
Because she's right. Like the idea that, just for an example, for somebody who's still confused about this, let's walk through it really slowly. Let's say somebody is assigned female at birth, but then becomes non-binary and doesn't associate with that. Regardless of whether they do any sort of other kind of intervention, that is enough to not call that person a woman, even if they get pregnant. You're an asshole if you insist on calling that person a woman. That's just simple. This is just, these categories, it's fun. Their base is fundamentalist, which is why they can state this stuff so clearly. And yeah,
Josh Hawley was so excited.
Yeah.
For this line of questioning, because they sat in his office with his cadre of fundamentalist, lib owners, and thought about like, oh, we're really gonna nail her on this. We're gonna nail her on this. This is gonna be great. And he just got put to bed. Folks want her Twitter handle. She's not on Twitter, so I don't know.
That's probably why she's also has such clear thought processes.
Well, yeah, share the video. Also, obviously, not to just plug us. Like our interviews with her have been fantastic. There's a lot of great YouTube videos of her talking about a lot of different things. So definitely worth checking out.
Yeah,
she's awesome.
Yep, really great. And that was. Let's play that again.
Yes.
Honestly, it was so. She was so adept at this, and both like in terms of just the on paper in terms of the answers, but the basically communicating to him like, come at me again, and he didn't. He knew better.
I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Oh, look how smug he is on this.
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
Perfect. So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get pregnant.
So you are denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where
No,
they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
Ms. Matsky.
Yep. It didn't quite go. He didn't quite have the dominance that he would have wanted for the trip that he's going to make to Tucker Carlson tonight to talk about this.
Although it doesn't necessarily matter too much because
they'll clip it in
they'll say he owned her and
absolutely,
like
of course.
she's what are her credentials? Let's see her LSAT scores.
One thing I will say is that this is not to disparage KBJ at all, because I don't think she had I don't think there was a reason like this to answer that question from like Marsha Blackburn or whoever about what is a woman or whatever. But I think like take this as a roadmap if you're testifying in this way, or if you're on a program or something. This is how you answer that question. This is how you answer that question without pivoting or deflecting or saying I'm not going to dive into this. You can dive into this and answer this correctly.
Right. And the amazing thing is, and this, folks, you can apply this in every situation where you are watching any public communications. The last refuge for someone who thinks like a conservative, understand this. This is what the conservative brain, this is essentially what conservatism is at the end of the day. It is aggrievement. And when he pivots into like, oh, is this what you do to kids in your class? You don't let them ask questions? And you say that the questions could cause harm? That aggrievement, you can see it everywhere. And it is the biggest tell for either a conservative or just someone who's playing the conservative grift. You can see it with YouTubers complaining about their demonetization. Whether it's like, Dave Rubin used to, I'm getting this demonetized, I'm getting that demonetized, or I've been kicked off of Twitter, or anybody else. Anybody else. I don't even care what they pretend. I would love to see an academic study of the rate in which conservatives cry about demonetization as opposed to anybody in the center or center left. I mean, these things happen. But it is always like a huge aggrievement. I can't even express an opinion anymore without being criticized for it. It's an aggrievement. We need to be in the marketplace of ideas. My ideas need to be ensconced in a bubble, in a no criticize zone. And if I get criticized, oh my gosh. Like they can't even bring up the snowflake criticism anymore because their aggrievement is so intense that they've got to spread these things out a little bit.
It's also funny, Holly comes around to almost arguing for a conservative safe space with regards to his questions. Like, is this how I would be treated if I was in your class? Like, if you're a little smug little punk, like I imagine you were at Stanford and Yale, where you went to, yeah, I imagine like some teachers can be a little bit snippy.
You could either do that, or you could sue the Humanist Report for saying that you hate trans people. Nothing.
Calling from a 202 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, how's it going? I'm Mark, and I am calling from Arizona.
Mark from Arizona. What's on your mind, Mark?
Yes. So I've actually been listening to your guys' show for a while, and one of my buddies got me to you. With that said, though, we have vehement disagreements on one particular thing, and pretty much what I vote on, and that would be guns.
Okay.
So with that said, I do not think we should ban AR-15s or any assault rifle for that matter.
Okay. Why would that be?
Well, I mean, because I just don't think statistics show that that's necessarily that big of a deal, even though it is like.
What do you mean by statistics?
Well, so for instance, I think Johns Hopkins University did a study about mass shootings and the type of firearms that are used in it.
Yeah.
And it said that the AR-15 style platform wasn't really the basis for,
most mass
the gun
shootings
being used. Yeah.
So all right. So how many, let's put it this way. How many kids being shot in a school, and then let's just add people shot, let's say in a mall or like at a concert. Sure. How many of those is worth it for you to have the right to have a semi-automatic weapon?
Well, I really don't like that line of argument because
it makes what you're saying sound like it's psychotic.
Well, no. Well, so if we're gonna go based off of that, so if you're principled on that, wouldn't you say the same thing for alcohol that kills 5,000 adolescents every year?
I would say that banning alcohol was attempted in this country and it failed.
Yes, it was.
And that alcohol is used by a lot more people and is far less lethal than weapons.
I mean, it kills 5,000 people, or kills 5,000 adolescents every year.
But did you know that alcohol is regulated and certain alcohol cannot be sold?
But it's not banned, and that's the argument that I'm trying to get
But
across.
certain alcohols
if-
are like certain guns, which we
Yes.
should be allowed to ban.
If
It's
guns
simple.
are to alcohol, then AR-15s are to some illegal alcohol that has been deemed too dangerous to sell on the open market.
Like, such as,
I don't.
I mean, I don't.
Certain levels of moonshine that have too high of a concentration of alcohol that is not going to be allowed at your local alcohol store. There are regulations for this. You know this.
Okay, well, I mean, I just want to
engage with my point.
Well, I mean, moonshine, and people make it illegally anyways, and that's kind of like the whole right-wing point of the guns is like, hey, if you ban it, they're going to get it anyways.
How many
there's
people
tons
do
of
you
people
know?
make-
How many people do you know that make moonshine?
I mean, me personally, none.
Well,
But
I mean,
to say that it's not out there is just kind of dishonest.
for the most part, most people do not make moonshine. Yes, I would say that that moonshine is a lot less. Moonshine was made during Prohibition because people were unable to access alcohol. It's a whole different situation. But
Can I just
yeah.
read? These are like, you say a lot of like these. You did a study that shows like a lot of these shootings aren't related to the AR-15, and I know we have a lot of gun violence in this country that is like handguns and stuff like that. But get like Stoneman Douglas High School, 17 people dead. That's 2018. Las Vegas shooter, 58 people. 58 people.
Yeah.
Sutherland Spring. Would that have been possible if we were say limiting the capacity of magazines?
Well, so, and that's not even my argument. I'm not saying limiting or like putting more regulation. I am saying banning.
Okay. What is the value of society? Because really it comes down to we make a decision, right? As a
Well,
society.
I mean, I
wait,
would say
hold
this
on.
is
Let me
more of a
finish
freedom
this. Hold on.
thing. Okay, sorry.
Well, you can get to the freedom thing in a second. But but we make a decision in this country, right?
Okay.
Approximately 5,000 underage drinkers, for whom it's illegal, let's say, to have drinks, to consume alcohol, die of alcohol poisoning because they get a hold of it, right? I mean, this is a problem with everything, frankly. But I mean, let's just stick with alcohol.
Yeah.
The question is, at that point, is just broadly speaking, society makes a choice, right? I mean, society makes a choice in terms of alcohol. If there was not enough people who wanted access to alcohol in this country, then they would see that cost associated with underage drinking to be sufficient enough to attempt to ban it. Right? I mean, we know that.
No, absolutely.
We saw it during Prohibition. That's basically what it came down to. It wasn't necessarily they were concerned about underage drinking, although I imagine that was part of it. But it was, broadly speaking, they were just concerned about people getting drunk. They didn't want people to get drunk. They didn't want people to drink. And society reacted to it. There is no way that you can tell me society doesn't want to ban, at least in terms of like to the extent that we can measure it, in terms of the people in this country, doesn't want to ban this one product versus how much value they see in it. That's the case. So if you don't accept that, if you don't accept that there's a difference between kids who make a bad decision and drink alcohol and end up killing themselves because that product exists in the world versus kids who die because by no decision of their own, they just went to school. And if you deny the terror aspect of it, right? Because my kids don't have to go to school and go through a traumatizing lockdown because of alcohol. So the cost is not just the deaths of kids. It's also what it does to society. And if you don't look at what it does in terms of like what it causes our police officers to buff up and get into SWAT gear, in the way that they do. And the look of all those Uvalde police, was a function of the potential threat of somebody coming in with that type of weapon. But you look at all those costs associated with it and you ignore those costs and you just look at what people want. And granted, our political system is not adept at necessarily addressing those concerns. But I mean, if we're just talking about, broadly speaking, why we should ban it, that's why I think we should ban them.
Well, so I want to counter a couple of those things because I think the main reason, and honestly, if you go look at, polls after, like, say, 2 months after a mass shooting with an AR-15 style rifle, it usually gets back to like 50-50. So it's actually a literal wedge issue at that point. But with that being said, the main reason why I think it gets such high poll ratings is because the AR-15 mass shooting is front and center. I think, like, for instance,
why do you think it's front and center?
Well, I mean, because they happen, of course.
No. I mean, we know alcohol deaths with adolescents happen too, but why do you think?
No. But that's what I'm getting to. I feel like if mainstream media was posting every single night that an adolescent dies from alcohol,
why do you think they don't?
I would say.
Why do you think they don't do that?
Well, I have no idea, actually.
Really? Do you have kids?
Well, I do not.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't think that you would need to have kids to understand the horror that people feel that they can't send their kids to schools without the sense that there is nothing they can do whatsoever to protect them from a mass shooting. Or that you can't go to a concert, let's say in Vegas, without there's nothing we can do. Like, I can tell my kids, at least I have a shot at telling my kids, be careful about alcohol, right? I mean, it may not be rational, it may not make a difference, but at least I feel as a human being some comfort in that maybe my kids have listened to me and this and that. But there is absolutely nothing I can do. I mean, it's like, look, let's be honest. It's why crime is more of a political issue than, let's say, car deaths. Okay? Because at least we feel like we have some measure of control over car deaths. But we can't necessarily have control over crime because that's somebody else is doing it. And so there's a reason why it's people, gets more attention in the news because it's considered more horrific.
Well,
and it terrorizes people in a way that drinking does not.
Yeah, because guns, when you are using a gun as opposed to using alcohol, we have regulations on what you can do. You can't operate machinery, you can't drive when you're drunk. But if we don't have sufficient regulations for guns, too, guns are designed to kill other people. Alcohol you can consume in moderation, and that's why we have those regulations for how much alcohol can be in hard liquor, for example. Because it's not meant, because we don't want people to die.
And let's be clear. We're also
hold on. I don't think that argument. I don't think that argument necessarily means ban things. You're just saying regulation.
Okay. Well, you're saying like we're not talking about banning guns. We're talking about regulating which guns can be produced. Now, but hold on for a second. Society has gone about as far as it could without an outright ban on alcohol. In terms of preventing that thing. There are, we accept car deaths too, right? We decide sort of somewhat arbitrarily 55, maybe. It's not totally arbitrary. There's some data that suggests that like productivity and efficiency and least amount of deaths, and that's it. But AR-15s, that to me is like, it's one thing you call in and say like, we shouldn't ban guns totally because we won't have the ability to hunt, and some people actually need it for their food. You'd have a stronger argument, I think, with people. But let me ask you this. Why should we ban let's say, bazookas?
Well, we don't ban bazookas.
We don't?
We don't. It's regulated.
Oh, it's regulated.
The 19
Okay.
the
Well, I think that
National Firearms
I think we can agree. Then I think hold on. Then I think we can agree that what about we just ban AR-15s the way that we regulate AR-15s in the way that we regulate bazookas? How about that?
I mean, if that's what it had to be, sure.
Okay, we'll take it. Glad we could come together.
Yeah, I've even said
Fair
on
enough.
the feral hogs thing, like
Appreciate
the
the
government should be able to issue the like dozen people that need a feral hog gun.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a problem with feral hogs, you go down to the local sheriff's
Fish.
department, Game and Fish. You get your license, and you go shoot your feral hogs if that's what you really you need to do. I mean, we have fishing licenses, for God's sakes.
And I think people like
You go to the Cape, you can't go just take a clam. You could walk out to the beach and you dig your foot around and you pull a clam out, but you can't. If you fill a bucket full of clams and a gaming guy catches you, you get fined. I mean, you don't see any of those like fishermen like crying about their freedoms.
This is a role for the state. Like if we are going to have guns, you should have a very close relationship with the Game and Fish Department, closer than you have with the DMV for driving.
When was the last time someone invaded a classroom and forced 15 kids to drink until they died of alcohol poisoning, says Walking the Ocean. Can you ask the caller if restrictive access to alcohol was removed and alcohol was more readily available? Does this 5K go up or down? Well, I think that's a good point. I'll never forget traumatizing news story when 13-year-old drank a 6-pack of beer and 21 people died, says Cum Guzzling Cedar.
Aye.
Yeah, I knew that was inevitable. Is that a crazy idea? You basically can make your own moonshine, modify your own car, but it's obviously limited to the people with knowledge and skill. Being able to buy a weapon of mass murder with no skill or knowledge, these single-issue ammosexuals take it to a fanatical level.
And making moonshine would be a lot more complicated or less complicated than manufacturing an AR-15 from scratch.
Statistics say it's not worth banning. Quote, what the statistics be to make it worth banning? Well, you shouldn't bring in statistics, Sams. This guy should be banning from using statistics. It's a really dumb comparison to compare alcohol and guns. Alcohol prohibition is dumb because its enforcement's near impossible. It's still made in prisons today. Prohibiting guns is outrageously easy because only a few manufacturers have the ability to make them. Yes. You also don't have some disgruntled incel going to schools with funnels and jugs of Everclear, says North Dakota Llama. Anyone else suspect when the NRA got into legal trouble in New York, gun manufacturers had some money freed up that they started spreading around to the left, says Glass-Steagall. Schools also spend a considerable time reinforcing that they should not drink and drive, says Militant Apathy. Mental hoops this guy is going through to justify himself that he likes his guns, doesn't like that other people think that maybe they're bad, says Alex4J5. Also, F this dumbass caller about the guns, says Raccoon Alligator. All right. Fruity Dinosaur. I don't know what that is. Those 20-minute poops again. Okay. Daredevil. 20-minute poops day Tuesday. Oh, was this the day that's all? Okay. Southern Socialist. Happy News Day Tuesday. And our crew left his best. John from Omaha. They banned the original formula of Four Loko. Alcohol gets banned all the time.
Yes.
Tomo Link. Happy Newsday Tuesday, folks. Here in Britain, the Tory leadership race is taking shape with Rishi Sunak among the favorites to win, while leadership of the Labour Party needs to remember that they're supposed to oppose austerity, not validate it. Also, if you support the Liberal Democrats, then you don't get to lecture anyone about enabling Tories when your party spent 5 years in coalition with the Tories, enabling the Tory agenda on Parliament. Good point.
I don't understand what the difference between Labour and Lib Dems are at this point with Keir Starmer in charge. Somebody should explain that to me.
Since we got to speak about gun control, here is Joe Biden at the White House lawn giving a speech with gun control activists, one of whom, Manuel Oliver, whose son Joaquin died in the Parkland shooting. And here is him registering his issue with how far we have gone in terms of doing any type of regulation of guns in this country.
Sit down, you'll hear what I have to say. If you think you...
I've been trying to tell you this for years.
Let me finish my comment. Let him talk. Let him talk. No one, okay? Because make no mistake about it, this legislation is real progress, but more has to be done. The provision of this new legislation is going to save lives, and it's proof that today's politics, we can come together on a bipartisan basis to get important things done.
And he's walked out of the
says let him talk and then escorts him out with
Right.
security.
Biden's so great with protesters.
very adept. in that
Jesus
way.
Christ. I mean, so his child died in Parkland?
His son Joaquin was murdered in Parkland. Yeah.
I mean, also this bipartisan bill, they should sink it in the House.
I mean, this is they're going out there. They won't at all because they don't want to be responsible for the one piece of legislation that could pass through the Senate
I know,
going
but-
away. But it is really largely as much of a testament to the failure of being able to pass any type of decent gun control as it is to anything else, really.
You give certain Republicans a rhetorical win, I guess, in theory. They can say, I voted for this in their reelection efforts. But all it does is it gives law enforcement more discretion potentially. There's abstract funds. I mean, it still has to get fleshed out, but for mental health centers, we don't know what that means and who's in charge of that. But when we saw in Illinois with Highland Park, they have red flag laws on the books there. And theoretically, there was a reporter who engaged with the cops and was asking when the Bobby Crimo, the shooter, when he had his knives taken away, why was that not registered in the red flag laws that Illinois has? Because, and basically his father could have done it, but it also secondarily the law enforcement had the ability to do it and they just did not flag it. So like that, we're gonna see more of that. I mean, and the only reason that they were able to come together on this bipartisan bill is because it's another pro-cop bill that like does nothing to challenge law enforcement's funding, etc. And that I don't even think is worth it at all.
Right.
I don't know.
Here is Jill Biden on the same day giving a speech to the Unitas U.S. conference in San Antonio, Texas. This is not the one where she mispronounces bodega.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, that was.
What'd she say?
I don't know. I can't even replicate
Bodega.
it.
Bodeja?
No, and
it's like a Y almost in there, like boydega.
Yeah, she didn't know how to pronounce bodega,
Okay.
which I have to say, the idea that I could pronounce a word that anybody else could not, I find shocking. But nevertheless, this is a different part of her speech where she was talking about the gun legislation, and you could hear chants of "do something" in the background.
And I knew that a piece of Uvalde would always be a part of me. Like all of you, Joe and I think about those families and all who carry that grief every single day. When we were leaving the school, someone shouted, actually a lot of people shouted, "Do something, do something." And I'm proud that Joe has. And he will do everything he can to call on Congress to act, including on measures that ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
I'm sorry, I meant that she was referring to that, and that's what they did, and that is part of the reason why they perceive this as being so, so valuable, yet they didn't really do anything. I mean, there's nothing to be done with within the context of our legislation. It cannot be broken. The one thing that they could do, I think, that should be done is liability for gun makers. I don't think that there is any type of, it is one thing to be able to own an arm, but it is another to manufacture something that is expressly for killing other human beings. And it seems to me that if you're going to optimize a weapon, maybe to kill a fetal pig or something like that, or a feral pig rather, then maybe you optimize it for that. But you also, as a manufacturer, you got to know, like, how many feral pigs are out there? If you're going to claim that this is for shooting feral pigs, as a manufacturer, I feel like a good tort lawyer can make a case like, well, you're making more guns. You can kill,
kill all the pigs at this.
Kill all the pigs in the world with the guns that you're manufacturing for the United States, 5 times over. And so, get rid of the liability. That's where I would start. Get rid of the liability for these manufacturers. They are making a product that is designed to kill people. Period. End of story. There are some weapons that are clearly hunting weapons, and you could make an argument that these are not designed to kill people. But, I don't know if target practice is enough. I mean, you could say anything is target practice, right? I mean,
but I would cleave it off that way just to try to wedge the folks and say, okay, fine, we're gonna give certain types of rifles,
without a doubt,
stuff,
without
shotguns.
a doubt, that's where I would start.
Yep.
Because all you do is you need to let the tort lawyers get in there and make it very, very expensive for them to put out these weapons that cause homosexuals to get aroused. So that's where I would go. Emma's Graveyard Designs. Idea to boost memberships for members only once a month, 90-ish minute long video of Sam answering listeners' tech questions. From how do I set the VCR clock to how do I see my replies to my tweets. Gary Busey's brains. A sinkhole in front of the restaurant necessitates a health inspector visit to put on a hard hat and fill it. I hope that gem doesn't make its way into your next interview with a libertarian. Might lose the argument on government overreach. I get news for you. What do you think is going on with that sinkhole? It's probably implicating the water that goes into the to the restaurant. Also, I would have concerns with the egress. You can't have people going to that restaurant. You can't have people working in there.
I don't even know what egress is.
They can't leave. The workers cannot leave. And in that town, the health inspector also does a lot of the labor compliance. ASIAC, if I took a shot every time you talked about Lynn Cheney, I would need a new liver before you can have. Hockey supremacist. A ballot committee seeking to enshrine abortion rights in the Michigan Constitution submitted over 750,000 signatures on Monday, breaking the previous record for the number of signatures by over 100,000. An expansion of voting rights in the state is also under review with a submission of nearly 700,000 signatures. In other news, Secretary Buttigieg recently changed his residency to my hometown in Michigan. Wondering what you think of the implications are of that move. I don't know.
He said it was to be closer to Chasten's family, so I don't know if it was anything particularly at foot there. I don't know.
I don't know about that, but I did see Liz Winstead.
I can tell you, being near family with having kids is a lesson that I learned well too late. Now, I mean, we never had any of that. I would do it, whatever it takes, do it. Believe me, even if you're going to move to Michigan, with all due respect.
Liz Winstead was highlighting some abortion stuff in Minnesota too, some pro-abortion stuff going on. So there's some activity up in the upper Midwest.
Yep. No ads and saying F on air. The only thing that would make this orc's birthday better is a shofar. There you go. Murray the Orc.
Murray the Orc.
Nice shot of cable management and somebody's shins. I'm sure you've made very particular person on the internet's day.
Bradley Shins.
Clown Shoe Mike. Emma's having such a good hair day that Sam's camera is trying to show it too.
Yeah.
Paint Chip Paster. The deep state is hacked into your camera, trying to sabotage you, Sam. This new move by the Biden administration makes me actually want to vote for them again. If only they had done this from the beginning. I mean, look, without a doubt, there were women who were in life-threatening situations over the past 2 weeks in some of these states. I don't know if we'll ever know how many. I don't know if it was that many. We don't know. Politically speaking, they should have had the awareness that people were going to react this way to the reversal of Roe v. Wade. I mean, I can't even believe I have to even say that.
It's supposed to be, the issue, which is why, it's so important to vote for Democrats. One of the issues that they wouldn't say abortion, but they'd advertise it.
And this actually, in many respects, again, strengthens my competency argument. Because if they're doing it, and it remains to be seen if they do this, effectively, but they certainly are paying the political price for doing it if there is one, which I think net
You mean the
is not one.
incompetency argument about the Democrats?
Yeah, their lack of competence.
Yes.
That had they, being a competent politician would be projecting out and saying people are going to be upset about Roe v. Wade being overturned, and they're going to look to us to do something. Guys, I don't know if you're aware, but we saw a preview of what the brief could be. Does anybody want to get on this? Like HHS, come up with what I can do. OSHA, whatever. I task all of these agencies. I want a report on my desk before June 10th when the decision could be made from all of you. And then maybe somebody raise their hand, but, maybe there's a chance that this won't happen. And at that point, you look around and go yeah, but there's a good chance it's going to. And we should have these reports anyways. Because if it doesn't happen this year, it's going to happen next year. And if it doesn't happen next year, it's going to happen the year after. So let's get these reports done, folks. Shouldn't take that long. Just do it. That's it.
And then you set the table for when the ruling does come down, and you've already talked about putting stuff on federal lands.
Exactly.
And it's not you're scrambling to figure something out me during forgetting a homework assignment.
And at that point, you can say we're going to take the next 48 hours to determine what steps we're going to take. So if you want to make it look like you're, I don't know, for some reason react. I mean, it just should have happened earlier. But the good news is they're doing it. And now we're going to make sure that there is enforcement of this. Paint Chip Taster says, I used to disagree with you on the competency argument, but this has swayed me.
There you go.
There you go. I convinced someone who tastes paint chips. Spliff the spliff. Split the spliff. Codename PSYOP Sam. Mission, keep the Democratic Party intact by convincing progressives to vote blue no matter who. Status, doing great. High five, Sam. Sam, Pelosi has your favorite ice cream in her $10,000 freezer for you. See you in our weekly meeting. Keep fighting the good fight. Wink, wink.
What is your favorite ice cream?
My favorite ice cream?
Yeah.
I like all flavors. I don't think I've ever run into an ice cream that I wouldn't eat. So you put
Would you
whatever in front
prefer
of it.
vanilla or chocolate types?
What I love about this, and I assume this is not from the Democratic Party insiders who send me these PSYOP, because that would be ridiculous. It's supposed to be a PSYOP. Obviously, you don't announce it to everybody. And first off, I don't say vote blue no matter who in the primaries, anyways. But what is the point? Am I going to go through this again?
I think it's a joke. I think that one's a joke.
Yeah, that's a
Is
joke.
it a joke?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I hope so.
It's 100% a joke.
It's just not that funny. And so, but yes, if you're a progressive and there's only a Republican and Democrat who have a chance to win an election, you should vote for the Democrat. Super easy.
Again, the Democrats we don't really care all that much if the Republicans get in for a little bit and are able to like cut taxes and stuff. So you're not punishing them.
Because I know all the success that I've seen when people voted for Jill Stein. She almost got whatever it was.
The only
2%
person
of the
What is that? Is that incompetence or is that by design that Green Party hasn't been able to capitalize on?
It's not just that they haven't been able to capitalize. The real problem with the Green Party, in my mind, as a party, now, I'm not talking like generically third party, but the Green Party in and of itself is they turn their focus to trying winning national elections, and they basically gave up the project of electing mayors and of electing congresspeople and electing other officials. I mean, they still do it to some extent, but not nearly the success they had before 2000. And I won't vote for anybody in the People's Party because they don't have open primaries. They just backroom.
That's a whole
Jimmy
mess.
Dore is their presidential candidate. That to me seems completely.
That's the thing. Is like all we want is for like these third parties to have some sort of consciousness about how these things can go sour and play spoilers. And like the folks that constantly push them have shown no sort of learning from any of these experiences, what Green Party failure or the People's Party, whatever the hell's going on there with that.
That's just a joke.
It's
that's
insane.
Just an email list that is actually imploding.
But people were promoting that shit.
I know it.
Like I mean, I would feel bad if I told somebody who's like, how can I get involved in politics? Oh, go join the People's Party.
Oh my
I would
God.
feel like I wasted that person's, like part of that person's life.
Right. And they don't vote blue no matter who crowd. Because that's what that is, right? I mean, that's what that is.
Better just
don't vote. They're just saying don't vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's people that like need to make their voting pattern some sort of individual narcissistic project. It's
Here's
like,
what I
But
would
there's
say.
a lot of good people that got held up in that as if it'd be the best way to pressure Democrats, and those people were misled by people in the
Yes.
media.
Without a doubt. I would say my suggestion to folks like that is get a tattoo. And just let that be your thing.
right, or go to therapy.
AOD fan, let's start a hashtag called Release the Hugo Cut. Science people don't care about your feelings. Because the Hyde Amendment includes carve-outs for the life of the mother, incest, rape, doesn't that supersede any state's language that does not include those stipulations? And it seems to be the case, but South Dakota refuses to use Medicaid funds in rape or incest cases. So does this need to be litigated to enforce what the HHS is asserting? The first part, I'm not quite sure if the Hyde Amendment is implicated in any way, because this isn't a question of I don't understand the first question about the Hyde Amendment. But in terms of the second question, South Dakota refuses to use Medicaid funds in rape or incest cases. I would assume that HHS would have that authority even outside of it would be some, I would have presumed some Medicaid, like a provision within Medicaid, but I'm not sure. KOT leftists. Is there a way that you can get anyone on to talk about the farmer protests going on in the Netherlands? How legitimate are they, or is it AstroTurf like the trucker protests were in Canada by the right? We can try.
It's a good question. I haven't looked too much into that. I have seen that going on.
I catch up on the weekend. Life-saving abortion. You've been referencing the doctors, but more likely the decision is made by risk-averse hospital legal teams. Well, like I say, it's possible that could be the case. But if there are doctors there who care whatsoever, they can blow the whistle on those legal teams, and there'll be fines. So the legal teams have to now weigh whether they want to go up against the feds or the state. So, all right, let's go into, what do we go? Oh, should we do?
Jordan Peterson?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Jordan Peterson is back in the news quite a bit because he's got a show on the Daily Caller.
Daily Wire
And
Plus.
he's not on Twitter,
Daily
so he's
Wire.
got to, make an appearance.
And so he's got to, and
Because he'd rather die
I'm in
than
the
delete that
studio
tweet.
24/7 putting out great tracks.
Let's hear Jordan Peterson. Which one is more bat crap crazy? Let's start with the first.
Well, they're kind of a sequence.
Okay, so we got to do them together. You
Yes.
think? Okay. All right, we'll do both of them. Now they've put Jordan into into the thoughtful bubble. He's in the Charlie Rose seat, but he does have a little bit of a glow, like he's angelic around him. This is all a.
To me, he looks like this is his villain.
Well, he's wearing that
supervillain
zoot
arc.
suit. That's why.
I know, and so much jewelry that they'll often give villains in Bond movies, like rings and just different ways to make them seem. I don't know.
I was just gonna say he looks almost like Blofeld from the Bond movies.
It's Blofeld.
Blofeld, sorry, with the white cat.
How did you get that right?
That's impressive.
I expect you to die, Mr. Bond.
Yes. Even the way he moves his fingers, you should watch. But basically, he's talking about Ukraine and says that the culture war in the United States is responsible.
And are we degenerate in a profoundly threatening manner? I think the answer to that may well be yes. The idea that we are ensconced in a culture war has become a rhetorical commonplace. How serious is that war? Is it serious enough to increase the probability that Russia, say, will be motivated to invade and potentially incapacitate Ukraine merely to keep the pathological West out of that country, which is a key part of the historically Russian sphere of influence?
I just want to lay out to you what he said. First off, he said in his own sort of special way, we hear about the culture war a lot. Is it serious? Well, Russia may, and the way that he frames this is all to give him an out. You understand that, right?
Yeah.
Is it serious enough that Russia would have attacked Ukraine to keep out all of the gayness and trans stuff from happening in Ukraine?
Sorry.
Just asking questions.
When the wokeness, I'm trying to put this together. NATO is representing woke. I thought NATO was the problem, expansion towards, but it's actually Putin didn't have a problem with NATO until it was a spear point for the woke West.
Yeah,
that is the thing.
Okay.
Had NATO just managed to be transphobic
and overthrow dictators,
Putin wouldn't have been afraid of what was happening. You don't want that type of moral deprivation on your borders.
Yeah, it's not like military contracts, it's the cultural stuff.
Those are the real ties that bond these nations.
Okay.
It is just so
very
awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is just so awesome.
But he elaborates. We have the second thing now, because then he brings in Biden.
Yeah,
more
what's a case study?
specifically.
Hold on for 1 second.
I'll elaborate.
I've done my transphobia. I've done trans people existing is why Russia attacked Ukraine. Sort of, maybe. I didn't exactly say that. I just put it out there as food for thought. But it's not just the existence of trans people. There are black people too.
But it remains true that sex and race trumped qualification, and that a moral case was made for that decision. And that in and of itself does not provide indication of Western derangement. But.
Okay, hold on for a second. Let me just explain what that is about. Yeah, I want you to go back about 15 seconds.
God.
I know there's a lot of people going there that's like, why is he doing but? I'll tell you why. Because the notes that he has that are out basically right in front of his knee on that table, he couldn't read.
Yeah.
And so I want to do this in one take. Or this is actually the 50th take. And so I'm going to just, instead of saying cut, because we're not ready for that Dutch angle shot yet, I'm going to say but multiple times until I can look back down. So watch his eyes. This is fun.
qualification, and that a moral case was made for that decision. And that in and of itself does not provide indication of Western
Look at it.
derangement.
Yep, there it is.
Derangement.
But,
Whoop.
but,
Yeah.
but,
I'm just trying to.
when the self-same candidate was asked directly in an interview during the confirmation process,
he's talking about
the very
KBJ.
straightforward question, what is a woman? Which, granted, was a gotcha question, which only goes to show the severity of our current level of derangement, and so is no excuse for failure to answer. She said, I'm not a biologist. That is not a good answer.
His argument is here that because KBJ
could not answer,
was not
who is
qualified.
Right.
Well, she said she would, defer to experts on those sorts of questions, which is, fair enough.
It's indicative of Western weakness.
But you'll notice that they never actually put forward their definition. I have a clip here, if you have this, Bradley. This is from Matt Walsh's documentary, and this is a clip of Hassan actually discussing it. But they say, like, why can't you say the definition? But it's actually difficult because there's a lot of different parameters. And like I read that thing, like even biologists are like, well, it's difficult to say one thing that's exclusive of everything else.
Let's go on that in a second, because we should just be clear on what Jordan Peterson is trying to argue here. And I will tell you that in 2005, one of Rush Limbaugh's big talking points was he was railing on people for wearing pink ties. Dick Durbin wore a pink tie on the Senate floor. I'm not kidding about this. In fact, I had multiple callers about this. We call in. Dick Durbin's wearing a pink tie. Our enemies are laughing at us. And they were talking at the time. It was, of course, Muslims were laughing at us because we're so feminized.
Tucker does this with China now, too, by the way.
And it is all part of the same. The idea that Russia attacked Ukraine because they were afraid of Western wokeness seeping into their society via Ukraine because it would be too open to the West, as if, like, I mean, let's just for a second, ignore the insanity associated with that's why that they would attack. Let's just assume that Putin's going like, we can't let the Western wokeness infect Russia. So the best way to do this is to expand the size of our country and allow for more opportunity for wokeness to get in. Like, you would want to create bigger borders with Ukraine if you wanted to keep out the wokeness. You wouldn't want to say well, let's occupy this entire country as a way of.
Putin wants to detransition Ukraine from being woke.
There you go. And also, the only stated reason why they have attacked Ukraine has been denazification, which in and of itself could be considered as a
which in and of itself
is sort of like a woke project. So, in other words, everything Jordan Peterson is saying there is sheer nonsense. But because I said the culture war is prominent within our rhetorical frame,
for some reason,
appears.
Not that I'm contributing to the culture war.
That doesn't necessitate that it's a bad thing to do. Even though I am contributing and making the phenomena I am commenting on as if it existed outside of people like myself. But because I say it is prominent within our rhetorical landscape, as opposed to a lot of people are arguing about the culture war, then people don't realize how absolutely dumb everything I'm about to say that follows it will be. Checking notes. Yes, I actually wrote this stuff ahead of time.
But.
So that's just absurd.
Yeah.
But okay, now let's get to this whole question of we need Supreme Court justices to answer what is a woman.
And let me just quote from the USA Today first. This is from Rebecca Jordan, a young scientist. There isn't one single biological answer, quote unquote, to the definition of women. There's not even a singular biological answer to the question of what is female, Jordan Young said. There are at least 6 different biological markers of, quote, sex in the body. Genitals, chromosomes, gonads, internal reproductive structures, hormone ratios, and secondary sex characteristics. None of the 6 is strictly dichotomous, Jordan Young said, and all different markers don't always align. So that's just that's what an actual, like,
even biologically, it is a complicated process. Never mind in terms of like gender.
But how does Matt Walsh, the documentarian in Who and What Is a Woman, how does he answer that? Well, let's play this here.
He's a deep thinker.
What is a woman to you?
I just really like to know.
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Well, I'm asking. That's why I came to a college professor who's.
Oh, dude, I'm just.
Can't even answer.
He can't even answer that question. He can't even answer that question.
Look at the right. Can't even answer that question.
It's kind of similar to something we saw, that what we just saw with Josh Hawley there too, which like they really want to like pin you down and make you look stupid because you're including trans people for their base. Just the mere inclusion of trans people in the rhetoric is what's supposed to get you, but they don't want to get pinned down and actually be forced to say if you have a vagina or if you have a penis, right? Because they know it's like not necessarily going to age well. They just want to use it to target bigotry at other people and, you know, call them woke moralists or whatever.
Right. They don't want to get specific in the moment because of how they know it's going to look in time, but they want the left to get specific in the moment because they know at this moment their fundamentalists are primed to just react negatively.
Well
against
said.
it.
Right. I mean, we even also see this in the context of sports to some extent too, right? I mean, because you can't participate in women's sports if you're a woman. You have to meet certain requirements in terms of like, what is it? They test testosterone?
Yeah, they
stuff like that.
They do.
Okay. So even they have a different definition of what a woman is for the context of the specific event that they're holding.
And that's not even a good indicator too, because women can have different levels of, even cis women can have high testosterone.
But that's my point, is that there is no a indicator.
Fundamentalist,
there is no one indicator. It is contextualized.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to be testing Olympic athletes for their levels of hormones if it was so easy.
Right. It's just like drop your pants. And that's it. End of story. But it's not, because it's a contextualized question, and context changes all the time. We saw this with white people.
Yeah.
Italians weren't white. Irish weren't white. Jews weren't white until they were. That's what I would come back with, maybe with the Josh Hawley. What is a white person? Today. Oh, let's do this. This dude on Monticello on Fox.
Monticello, yeah. Is it cello? I thought it's Monticello. Yeah.
Monticello, yeah.
I say Monticello.
Okay.
It's been a while since we've heard from our Fox and Friends. I don't know what's going on with those guys. We got to get back on the Fox and Friends beat. I miss them.
I'm sure in the Hamptons.
Okay, so here it is. Brian Kilmeade is interviewing the Brownstone Institute founder, Jeffrey Tucker. What do we know about the Brownstone Institute?
I think they're COVID minimizers related to like those folks who were saying like the Great Barrington Declaration.
Oh, is that right?
I'm pretty sure I can check on
that. But as soon as you call yourself an institute, we're here at the Majority Report Institute. Maybe we got to come up with a new one.
Brownstone Institute looks to influence a post-lockdown world by generating new ideas in public health, scientific discourse, economics, and social theory.
I love that that's a description of the Brownstone Institute, but we just have them on to talk about how there's too much wokeness.
Well, because the actual like permanent police state caused by the COVID lockdowns kind of didn't materialize.
Yeah, it's like the same reason why Dr. Oz is just anemic right now, right?
So,
because like the medical tyranny is not that.
You're
current.
basically getting what you want.
Yeah.
Let's. This is just so awesome that like, what do you do? This clip answers the question. What do you do when you create a fake institute to pretend that we're living in an authoritarian state where COVID is a mechanism for control of humans? Well, of course, you pivot into complaining about all the black stuff at Thomas Jefferson's house.
All right, life, liberty, and the pursuit of wokeness. Yep, Thomas Jefferson's Monticello estate now accused of going woke after visitors say the founding father's home has been flipped to criticize Jefferson and trash his legacy. Sounds unbelievable, right? Jeffrey Tucker is the founder of the Brownstone Institute and just visited Monticello and is just as outraged as you would think he would be. So, Jeff, you want an educational day of one of America's indispensable men? What did you find?
Well, I went on the 4th of July, right, to pay homage to the great man who inspired emancipation of slaves, who brought us separation of church and state, the author of the
you have to pause. Inspired emancipation of slaves. Jefferson's emancipation inspired Jim Crow, because it was, if we are going to stop the slavery, which I'm entirely invested in myself and not actually doing a whole lot to get out of, we're going to have to transport them back to Africa because they cannot coexist with us. So that's the type of, like, getting rid of slavery that Jefferson set the table for.
This guy's such a dork, too. Like, why do they worship these guys as if they're, gods? I mean, it really is just a bizarre fetish, but keep going.
Part of the Declaration of Independence that still inspires everybody today. All men are created equal and all this kind of stuff. A great architect, scholar, Thomas Jefferson. And instead I got, exactly the opposite. It just, debunking his history, his reputation, putting him down, demoralizing everybody on my tour. It was just sad, sadly predictable too these days. I just thought that maybe
Pause it for 1 second.
Monticello
Didn't he
would
start
be
off by
protected.
saying he was surprised by this? I went down there for one thing, but I got another thing. Of course, it was completely predictable. What? Why did you go expecting one thing and get a different thing that is completely predictable?
I went there with my weird boner for Thomas Jefferson, and nobody was engaging in this with me.
People were mocking my bow tie.
From this disease of wokeism, but I was sadly wrong.
It's a plan. Let's go infect the boards on these homes, which is these are museums, and go in there and take.
Pause it.
Boards of museums.
When he says infect, the people that are having a say are the Hemmingses, the actual descendants of Thomas Jefferson, who had to fight for centuries to get recognized, that reality to get recognized, and it wasn't recognized until DNA testing forced the hand of the white Jefferson descendants. who wanted to deny that. So that's the changes in the board. Is there's more it's actually good that the Hemmings family gets some sort of inheritance from this plantation that built them along with other slaves, obviously.
All right, continue.
And do this whole thing from the slave perspective. I took this.
Go back.
This whole thing from the slave perspective.
On these homes, which is these are museums.
Go back to where we
and go in there and.
The wokeism, but I was sadly wrong.
It's a plan. Let's go infect the boards on these homes, which is these are museums, and go in there and take over and do this whole thing from the slave perspective. I took this tour. It's on Fox Nation. I did a whole thing. There's a whole tour there. You could talk about the whole slave community. No reason to pull any punches there. But to go to the main house and not talk about this incredible man is crazy.
They don't talk about Jefferson at all.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that what they're saying now? They're not. Pause it. They're saying the argument is that we don't talk about Jefferson at all.
And they included a mention of slaves in the main house? In the main house?
How much,
with all of the ornate, different kinds of furniture and the chandeliers? That's not for all the slave talk.
Field hands into the main house. What is going on here? You stay out in the field.
I mean, it's one thing to talk about it when you're in the slave quarters or even the fields, but let's keep this to the enlightenment.
Form meeting function for the proper experience. We don't discuss the slaves in the main house.
We could have a discussion about maybe discussing the house slaves
we
within the
have
main
one
house, but
house
no field slaves allowed.
Yes.
None. They're not to be seen
Sally,
and not heard.
we can talk about Sally here, just briefly, of course, nothing too explicit. But
and the romantic relationship that they engaged in. It was
But
really a modern,
say that here in the
historical rom-com.
Oh my God. Continue.
Noticed this, but the last time I went, it may have been, a couple of decades ago, really, but the house is full of grandeur, you know, there was a sense of majesty about the place. No longer. The place is filled with bric-a-brac, it looks like there's a rummage sale going on there or something. They've got contemporary paintings festooning this and that. You can't even get out of the music room without having to be forced to look at some woke piece of art. And the surly tour guides who've been told to do this just keep putting him down. Every question that people are asking as they go through, did Thomas Jefferson invent that? And they'll say, oh, he never invented anything. His reputation is wildly overblown. He was just a tinkerer, nothing more than that. And it goes on like this, and it's depressing and demoralizing and truly upsetting. You would think the Monticello would be something of a sacred space. And there are people coming from all over the world to pay homage to this great man.
And then I also said, is the Easter Bunny real? And they said no. All of my dreams.
I was expecting a shrine, and instead I got a historical account of the actual reality.
They canceled the egg hunt because they said the Easter Bunny wasn't real.
This totally ruins my fanfic that I was planning about this.
Sacred space sounds a little like safe space.
A little
It
bit.
should be. We shouldn't hear any factual information there. We should continue to have our National Geographic, our Reader's Digest version of history. And by Reader's Digest, I mean, of course, from 1952.
Everyone knows that the main house is a safe space.
They started saying that the lost cause was a myth. Continue.
With a sense of piety and appreciation for the gift that he gave the world. It was a real gift of freedom. And not a word about that.
It's unbelievable. And Montpelier, too, James Madison's home, the same thing has happened. I covered that over the weekend. Got to push back on this. It'll never happen in Mount Vernon because it's privately owned. So real quick, one of these other signs that were up there says this.
I do want to hear what the other sign is.
All men are created equal, close quote. Being lived up to in our country today, question mark. When will we know it? When will we know when it is? What does that, are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, this is the problem. The ironic thing about
one second. I just want to blow past that for a moment because I don't want to even entertain the vague notion that we haven't quite attained that all men being created equal thing. Particularly this couple of weeks when we did hear that maybe there is significant interest in the Supreme Court to overturn marriage equality, let's say, for instance, or perhaps all sorts of other things like whatever. Let's move on to the next thing. Go ahead.
Life by the claim that he was a secret abolitionist, which he was in some ways. And certainly he has inspired
in some ways.
Lincoln. There wouldn't have been a Lincoln if there hadn't been Thomas Jefferson. But you don't get that message at all. You get you go completely opposite. That he was a hypocrite, he was a liar, he was a bad person, and so on. And it's just truly heartbreaking. I feel bad for Jefferson's legacy. I mostly, in that day, I was sad myself because it's the last thing I expected. Although looking back, I realized, okay. But all the other people on my tour, they just were left demoralized and sad and robbed of, 40
But Jeff,
it
can't stand. It can't stand. You're going to start that story in the Washington Times about the Madison House. That's going to start, and people are going to push back.
Hey, just a reminder. Okay, stop it now. Stop. We've heard enough. Just a reminder as to what the Brownstone Institute is. Again, would you please read it? The Brownstone Institute
looks to influence a post-lockdown world by generating new ideas in public health, scientific discourse, economics, and social theory.
It's a front.
I'm just trying to think. Okay, Well, when that runs out of juice and we're not getting donations for that, let's go complain about wokeism and history at Monticello.
Yeah, well, this guy it's sort of a return to form for this guy. He was assistant to Lou Rockwell, who people may remember from Ron Paul's newsletters. Just a little bit of the content from Ron Paul's newsletters.
Well, now to be clear, Ron Paul never signed off on any of these. I mean, he literally
published them.
He literally signed them,
Right.
but he didn't sign off.
Yeah, that was boilerplate.
Yeah, yeah.
But a newsletter where you can read things like, given the inefficiencies of what DC laughingly calls the criminal justice system, I think we can safely assume that 95% of the black males in that city are semi-criminal or entirely criminal. And there's a whole bunch of things. There's apparently a suggested black activist wanted to rename New York City in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. So they said they should rename it Welfaria, Zooville, Rape Town, Dirtburg, or Lazyopolis. So that's where this guy's coming from. This is what it looks like when mainstream media launders a crypto racist.
Yep.
And you know who another big Lou Rockwell fan there is, who's also pretty prominent? One Blake Masters.
Ah.
Who's a contributor.
I'm on this website, and I'm sorry, just one more little tidbit. There's just little blurbs here for articles. One's on what weakened immune systems have wrought for children. Unfortunately, most people associate malnutrition with poverty. Unfortunately, chemical-associated malnutrition and dehydration exponentially grew during the COVID lockdowns to become a widespread and urgent problem all over the world. So basically saying kids were quarantined to such a degree and probably had the vaccines, and so now that's causing more harm than good.
These racists are really concerned about the people disproportionately affected by COVID. That's why they want to get everyone back to working at restaurants.
Oh, shoot. Let's go to the phones. Sorry, folks. Sort of forgot about you guys. Got a little carried away. Calling from a 150 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 150. 150.
Hello?
Hello. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi. This is Devin calling from New Brunswick.
Devin from New Brunswick. What's on your mind?
So I wanted to call the other week because when Jason was on talking about how he's like watching a movie about like queer people, and he's like saw the parallels between that experience and the experience of like black people. And I just wanted to like kind of reiterate that from the perspective of a queer person. And he's like I've been reading Black Skin, White Masks, and I think it offers a good like psychoanalysis of the black experience from one perspective, but also like a lot of it translates to queer people.
Okay. Can you be more explicit? Like in how so?
Well, it's like, I guess, just like how people are like, they're othered, and then say like, one of the things he goes over and about black people is, this like inferiority complex or neurosis, because some black people might try to get educated as a way to like say like I can conquer like this culture, like I can be white, like I can fit in, but really like they're just kind of playing into the systems that have created this this drive in the first place.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I'm following, but I think in general, folks who have been prevented by society from living their life in some sort of manner, authentically, or have been marginalized in some fashion, have probably, broadly speaking, generally speaking, better insight to other people having gone through something like that on some level. I'm not, it's a general statement, but I think, the dynamic, the reasons behind it and the intensity of it and the contexts can be different, but some of that dynamic is the same. But appreciate the call.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Calling from a 347 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
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 Yes. Who's this? Where are you calling from? We got 25 people on hold. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Okay, this is Charles from Brooklyn. Hello, Zaddy.
Charles from Brooklyn. How are you?
Yes. Okay. What I want to talk about today, it's just that the recent Supreme Court decision kind of reminds me of the Dred Scott decision. It's basically saying that there are no rights that a member of the marginalized community has that a white man must honor, or even further, there are no rights that workers have that capitalists must follow. That's honor.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like Dred Scott insofar as that, like, you can't if you're a runaway slave, even if you're in a free area, you're still a runaway slave.
Exactly. So people that can give birth or can get pregnant in those states, maybe all 50 states soon,
Yeah.
can't go anywhere.
I mean, the court is entering into an era which I guess Dred Scott was 1860. I mean, it's entering into an era from 1860 really until 1930. It was just the court sensibility was more or less the same. The only thing that changed was, in some way, the political situation and the things that the court had to sort of basically quash going forward. Like, I mean, they, in response to the stuff that was happening during Reconstruction, they basically carved open these, loopholes in terms of preventing people to vote, and allowing literacy tests and allowing property rights to be sort of like surrogates for racism. I mean, and the rights of it certainly favored, the powerful over others. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think you're going to start to see a lot of rulings that are reminiscent of an earlier era. That's for sure.
Exactly. And this has been their project for the last 40 years. It's like everyone thought that they just wanted to go back to the 1950s. They want to go back to the mid-19th century.
I mean, I think it's perfectly accurate to say that they want to go back to the Lochner era is really the most, because when government started to assert itself in some fashion, that time it was more like state governments, but when governments wanted to assert itself, they felt like they were the bulwark to protect, many instances, the capitalist class, essentially. But yeah.
Exactly.
I appreciate the call.
So, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Also.
Oh, not also. Sorry. Calling from a 307 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi. My name is Seth. I'm calling from Wyoming.
Seth from Wyoming. What's on your mind?
Well, I'll try to make it quick. My wife and I are both living in a crummy, very right-wing town in Wyoming, and I've lived there my entire 38 years of my life. We're both very socialist leaning, so we want universal health care, universal basic income, abortion, gun control, you name it. So because of that, I've gotten heavy harassment and light death threats on social media that has made me leave social media completely. My wife has gotten rape and death threats on social media and in person in our town. We've had eggs thrown at our house. We've just spoken our minds. We haven't assaulted or hurt anybody. So both of our guards are up very high. When we're at, a grocery store or anywhere in public, both of us have that high guard, like, just don't look at these people. We're terrified in a sense. We plan on leaving next year. I'm finally going to leave the crappy small town I'm from. We're coming to the East Coast. I'm just personally wanting to know, how do I lower that guard? I'm sorry, I'm shaky, a little nervous.
Okay.
But how do we put that guard down when we go to a place, hopefully, that we can find some common ground and at least have regular conversations without my wife being threatened to be raped and killed?
It'll take probably like 3 or 4 days. I mean, honestly, I mean, look, small towns are tough. Small towns in red states are even tougher. And I think, it depends on where you're going, as to like, this is frankly, this is part of what we really need is a bunch of people from Brooklyn to move there. But
Right.
short of that happening, whereabouts are you going to go? I mean, if you feel
we have
comfortable saying.
we've looked at New York State and Rhode Island, Connecticut, that area up there, Vermont.
New England. Look, you will find towns where you will find like, conservatives without a doubt. Certainly, like, many parts of upstate New York
Feel like the Midwest.
feel like the Midwest, but it's not super, super intense because they are used to running into like having a mix of people there. So,
Okay.
I mean,
Sometimes that can make it worse, though. Like I heard, right wingers in blue states can be more bullshit than even the.
yes, but you're never going to be in a place where you're going to be that outnumbered,
Right.
that they're going to feel confident in being that, threatening. Let's put it that way.
My experience is that conservatives in blue states will often be very aggressive and performative, have 20 Trump signs on their lawn. There was somebody in my area that had that, but they don't have the balls to maybe assault you or threaten you in that same way because they're outnumbered, as we say.
Anywhere of those states that you just mentioned. I mean, if you go up into, you'll find some pretty rurally type of places in Maine, not so much Rhode Island, a little bit, but
upstate New
even
York,
certainly within upstate New York, and certainly within Maine, and certainly within Vermont, and certainly within New Hampshire, and there are sort of rural areas in Massachusetts and Connecticut as well. But things are much more dense, so you got to go to a pretty small town to get too much of a backwards thing. Like I remember as a kid, I was dropped off in Whitensville, Massachusetts, as part of some type of program I was in out of Worcester, and I was dropped off with.
I thought it was some experiment your parents did.
No, I was dropped off. Part of the project was being dropped off. I was dropped off with a black woman, and I think just her presence there, increased the number of black people in that town by literally 75%. And we went to the library to go do research on the town. That was part of this program we were doing. And the librarian was we went to the librarian. She looked at us with almost no reaction. And she goes, follow me over here. And she took us into this back room and was like, I've only been here for 5 years and they consider me an outsider, so I couldn't talk out there. And I was like, we just looked at each other like, we got to get the fuck out of here. But that's you got to go to a small old New England town, and it really is more about outsiders than it is necessarily about politics, national politics.
But your experience with how your politics are suppressed and intimidated, that's the normal one. And if we had a media that wasn't bending over backwards, filled by coastal journalists to say we should be more sympathetic to Trumpers,
right,
we would maybe hear a little bit more about this. But that, as somebody who, when I go back to North Dakota, my parents, during the middle of the pandemic, were made to feel weird for putting masks on. That's the
Right.
problem in this country where it comes to suppressing people for their ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hang in there and let us know when you're east.
Will do, thank you. Also, the Brown Institute guy sounded a bit like Paul F. Tompkins doing Andrew Lloyd Webber, and it was making me laugh so much when you guys were talking about his fanciful dreams of how Thomas Jefferson's house should have been.
That's true.
That would be a
Sorry,
good
you guys
Comedy
give me-
Bang Bang guest.
Appreciate
I really appreciate all the laughs today, guys. Thank you.
Wait, comedy is Comedy Bang Bang still on, Matt?
Oh yeah, weekly.
Ah, I had an ex in college who's obsessed with that show. That's an amazing show.
Arun from Between the 101 and the 5. Tess, guys, are the IMs shut down? No. Mac the Brazen. I'm a licensed therapist who specializes in religious trauma. In response to the caller asking how long until he won't have to have his guard up, I'd have to say that even if the context changes, having your guard up may persist. Sometimes trauma therapy can be useful in addition to finding safer spaces. Fair enough. Vermont Ben. Upstate New York is Trumpistan. That's true. Rural Vermont is largely blue and progressive, except for the top right corner, which has more cows than people. Addison County, Vermont, for example, is awesome. I'm from an insane small town, too, says Hadub. When you get positive responses from the people you meet in a new place, your guard will let itself down over time. Abhishek, California is talking about implementing Texas-style bounty laws with regards to guns, letting citizens sue to enforce regulations, as per the Wall Street Journal. Excellent. Excellent. Socialist Bear Chicago. As a middle-aged white guy, while there can be some similarities in the minority experience, being gay and being black are radical different experiences that should not be equated. I'm not equating the experiences. I'm equating some of the dynamics of being a marginal person, give you some insight into that. Maybe I didn't articulate that well. Colin, final call of the day. Calling from a 725 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello?
Me?
Yes?
Hi, my name's Xander Corvus. This is wild. I've listened to this show since before I understood politics at all, so it's a big deal being able to talk to you guys.
Thanks for calling.
So I am, yeah, of course. So I am a sex worker and like adult film performer. And me and some friends of mine during the pandemic started a mutual aid fund for sex workers in need.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So it's called Suede Vegas. And basically it's just sex worker mutual aid Las Vegas. And basically it started because like when the pandemic occurred, there was no help that sex workers could get at all. Because we weren't able to get, workers' comp or anything that like the state would provide really, because they pretend like we don't exist or try to actively make us not exist. So, yeah, we started this thing. It's been going really well. We've actually branched out to like all over the world. Like we just started as like a little Vegas thing with me, Cody Vore, Summer Hart, and Tegan Trex. And like we were planning on just, having it be a local thing where we're, just like helping people around Vegas or in LA potentially. But yeah, it ended up expanding. We've given over like $175,000 in direct mutual aid grants to people. Like,
that's awesome.
Tests. Yeah, thanks. So basically the idea was, we want to give people just show us like, show us their accounts or like Twitter or whatever they're using to either sell their clips or whatever it is, however they're working. And then they hit us up on mutual aid or on suedevegas.org.
And I just got to your guys' website. I just want to clarify the spelling. It's Suede, like SWAID.
Yep.
Not like the,
Oh,
material.
as in aid, Southwest
yes,
aid.
SWAID.
I should have cleared that up.
Yeah, no, it's all
Yeah, I
good.
should have cleared that up. So yeah, that's us. And yeah, so we sorry, I'm just like I'm literally like I've been listening to this since Michael, and like Sam, you and Michael were like why I turned left or understood that I was left at all.
Oh wow.
So thank you again.
Excellent.
But yeah, and so I didn't know how you guys what you guys knew about like just like sex worker mutual aid in general and stuff like that, or if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff at all. But yeah, it's been tough for us out here because like we've been like Sesta Fosta obviously was a dog shit thing for was a crappy thing for us
Right.
as sex workers. But also out here in Vegas, they're like, or not just in Vegas, but they, you know, like Exodus Cry and all these like shady companies that try and basically they use the idea of sex trafficking like as like how they're stopping us from selling things on the internet or doing like any of our work at all. When they've literally, like, I think one case ever since the beginning of all those movements, have they ever like tried to stop anything that had to do with sex trafficking at all. It's literally just a hyper-religious organization that's trying to stop sex work in general.
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed somebody about Sesta Fosta maybe 3 or 4 years ago at in Vegas actually, when I go to that tort conference, and she had been trafficked. And we had a bit of like an argument. It was a little bit controversial. I'm trying to remember like what the outlines were of it. She was she was basically talking about suing these motels that would cater to trafficked, usually girls. But we brought up Sesta Fosta. She was very much for it and really didn't have much of a. It was interesting because her perspective on it was that when she was trafficked, she would see ads for essentially her and assume that there was nothing, sort of conflated her being trafficked with being just part of the sex trade and being legal. And that she didn't realize that it was illegal until she sort of got out of it, which... I don't know how you address that, but Sesta Fosta was problematic. I know I'd be interested if you went back and listened to that. And
yeah, no, I would love to. Yeah, I mean, like part of the other issue, right, is with sex trafficking victims of that. Especially in Vegas here, there's some really weird laws that they've passed over here. So say you were sex trafficking, like no matter what age you are. If you report that to the police, you get arrested because you are doing sex work, right?
Oh.
It's a wild,
Jesus.
Yeah, that's
wild law. Yeah, it's really fucked. But there's that, and then there was another one that's really. Oh yeah, there's another one here that really affects like sex worker housing. So if you say I don't know if it counts for like what I do. Like, I work for browsers and those companies and stuff, but like, so if your landlord rents a house to you and it's somehow proven that you're shooting porn in it or you're doing escorting, I think it's mostly with escorting, like at that house, the landlord can be charged as like a certain kind of felon at that point. So it makes it so now if you've ever been charged with any type of sex trafficking or arrested for it and it's on your record, people won't rent you.
They won't rent you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucked up.
Which, it's a pretty messed up thing. But like us at Swade, we're doing everything we can to, like every Sunday we do a Twitch stream that we me and a bunch of other sex workers and friends and leftist like Twitch streamers and all that stuff.
Can you find that info on Swade Vegas? The stream info?
I don't know. I think so. It would just be twitch.tv/xcorvus777. It's Sunday nights at 7 p.m. PST. And so we just play like silly games and stuff and have a bunch of like random, sex worker guests and leftist guests on. And we talk about, sex work stuff and play video games to raise money for Swade, right? So
Excellent.
There's like a Tiltify link. And so that's been our main fundraising thing.
Well,
but yeah, thank you guys for taking my call.
We'll put a link to Swade in the podcast and YouTube description today. And I would recommend putting a link to your stream.
Yeah, xcorvus777.
Yeah, I don't know why we haven't.
You should put that on the site.
Yeah.
I'll put both.
Yeah, that's actually a really Good idea. And there's another one, twitch.tv/dimbug, and she's our other person who streamed it. So, yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for taking my call. This
Appreciate
is like
the
really
call.
huge.
Of course.
Thank you, Xander.
All right.
Nice
That is
nice to
the
meet you.
final caller of the day. That was a good final call
Yeah,
of the
I
day.
know, right?
Someone whose work I'm familiar with.
Really?
Yeah.
I plead the fifth.
All right.
Did not know he was a fan of ours.
I have to say that I'm not familiar with his work, but I don't
Got
know
an
many
evening for you?
Should I
actors as
Google it
were.
later?
Well, Aaron is not cool. Xander Corvus, good to hear from such a prominent member of the sex work industry. We definitely need to hear more about this and how can we support legislation that helps and protects them. Consider having him on as a Friday guest. Plus, he's got a huge dick. Well, I mean, that's all right.
I like that there's a little group of like commie socialist sex workers.
Yeah, that's
exciting.
awesome.
That's great. All right. That is the caller portion of our day. I never know any actors' names. It's true.
Yes.
I really don't.
You can expand that to
just
a lot of others.
I don't know many people's names, period. Okay. Okay, well, Gum Cuzzler. We need more segments of Sam trying to pronounce medical or scientific terms. As someone who is also bad at pronouncing things, it makes me feel at home. Left of the box. If you've been taking calls today, please pick up 519. Sorry. Maryland Mailman. How upset do you think Christina O'Donnell is knowing she was 8 years too early to the party? Next week is Maryland's primary. Tom Perez is in a three-way tie, according to the latest polling. Miles.
All right, Tom Perez.
I know it. Nagopoline. Savita Halpadvar's death because of medical inaction is the result of Irish laws regarding the equal status of a fetus and mother may interest you. It also promised action in changing Irish law. We'll look at that. All right, we'll do 10 of these and get out of here. Middle America. Wait, the fine is just $120,000 for denying stabilizing treatment and not 50 years in prison. They're turning away from a dying person. Perhaps the hospitals will just pass the fine cost along to the customers. Alexis 485. It's crazy to me that the Senate is not going to pass anything because the thought is they don't want Manchin on board to appoint judges. Because they want Manchin on board to pass judges. I know you talk about judicial appointments all the time, but it seems that the only point of the elected parts of the federal government is to get more anointed priests into the judiciary than the other guys. Sad state of affairs. I agree, but that is the state of affairs. Illuminati kids. Alcohol is a stupid comparison to guns. How many alcohol deaths are people who have never drank a drop in their life? How many shooting deaths are people who have never owned a gun? Better comparison for this guy to argue drunk driving shouldn't be illegal.
Right.
I predict this law will springboard us into gun control about as fast as Obamacare did for the public option. DNC Google pundit. Sam, can you explain why there's always many dozens? Oh, I already answered that. What rules you? My favorite Trump nickname was Flake Jeff Flake. That's pretty good. Ghost Panda. Honestly, my biggest gripe about what Destiny said is his refusal to use standard measurements. Is it a big bucket? A thimble-sized one? Come on, man, at least use ounces. Yeah. Rhino Roni fan. Kind of all rich dudes this trying to dictate what a woman is can't even be men by their own definition. They don't have real jobs. Girls don't like them, and I can check their asses mad easy. Part of pushing the bipartisan bills is all self-indulgence. His whole mantra in 2020 was he's the deal maker, and the bipartisanship is still a thing. I mean, I guess. I think it's just that they actually genuinely believe that people care about this, which I don't think they do. Glass Seagull. Anyone else suspect when the NRA got into legal trouble in New York, gun manufacturers had the money freed up, they started spraying to the left? Oh, I read that already. Parliamentary cricket enthusiast. Interrupting interviews with MPs is more popular than pace of game changes to the national pastime. Americans, we have more in common than you might imagine. The Sanford and Son theme would be great for playing in the background of a congressional interview. Robo Gorka. Phones are awfully quiet. I don't know what that means. Sebede, Sam, you are the best advertisement of CND possible. Take a few doses, let go of rational thinking. You show it every day by thinking Dems are unable to do rather than willing to not act.
You're so boring.
I don't understand why people continue to listen.
Just leave us alone then. Jesus
Bearded
Christ.
cripple. Surely the rebuttal to the caller's AR-15 argument is what happened when they were banned assault weapons in the 90s. Well, but his point is not just that it will have impact. It's that we shouldn't do it. It'll have some impact. I don't think he would argue that it has no impact. I just think he thinks it's not worth it. Social Bear Chicago is middle-aged white gay man. While there may be... Oh, I already read that. All right, 2 more. Will from Indiana. Jordan Peterson voice. But, the culture war will be fully prominent, a rhetorical frame in our society once Sam gets his personalized 2018 Red Sox World Series champion Andrew Benintendi card. Will it be Benintendi's nuts that will make us win the culture war? Oh my God, I was wondering where the hell this is going. All right. 2 more. Left is deaf. Jeffrey Tucker is a Koch brothers funded DC libertarian. I used to work in the Beltway 10 years ago, and this guy was attached to the Mises Institute in Auburn.
Eesh. There we go.
Ron Paul think tank. And the final I am of the day. Noog Wrangler. Shout outs to Twitch user Memberberries for gisting 100 Twitch subs.
Gifting
100 Twitch subs. Sweet. What a pog champ. Hype train. Good job, Bradley, Matt, Emma. See you guys tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice is made for the option where you don't get paid, for the rope that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101